future aircraft, capacity of up to 300 passengers, range of over 4,000 miles, and speed of Mach 3 were extremely ambitious. So ambitious that many experts thought it was too much. The idea of creating something similar was quickly abandoned. Such a project would absorb all the resources of the aviation industry, and such performance in conditions of the USSR were not really needed. In the end, according to the results of long studies, it was decided to focus on an aircraft that is close in specifications to a more pragmatic Concorde. This option, of course, was easier, but we shouldn't have any illusions. It was not simple at all. Given the level of technology, material science, engines and electronics of that time, any modern expert would say that creating such a plane in the next few years is simply impossible. We can of course say that military supersonic airplanes exist, so what's the problem? But it should be taken into account that the requirements for safety, comfort and efficiency in the operation of civilian aviation is much higher than in the military. So the idea of simply making civilian modifications of the bombers did not last. It was absolutely clear that the airliner had to be created from scratch. This work was truly enormous. Dozens of special organizations and institutes of the country took part in the design process. In the early stages, it was necessary to study the possible risks of the sonic boom impact on the ground infrastructure and settlements, the destructive effects of emissions into the atmosphere, as well as the effects of radiation on passengers and crews during high-altitude flights. But this work, like the study of the overall aircraft design, was accelerated, since many studies on the topic were also very actively carried out in Europe and in the United States. Supersonic was the center of attention, the results of scientific research were actively published, and the work was covered by the press from around the world. At this point, I should raise an issue that has caused a lot of debate for many years. Isn't the Tu-144 just a Soviet copy of Concorde? Observation of publications, scientific research, coupled with industrial espionage. Besides, look, the planes are also similar. Concordski, yes? The answer to the first comment is simple. Isaac Newton once said, "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." Observing publications and research around the world is a necessary work for any specialist, no matter if you are a scientist, a doctor or an aircraft designer. Fundamental research on the subject of supersonic aircraft is millions of hours of work in dozens of labs and institutes around the world, and it would be foolish to ignore such a baggage of knowledge. Besides, the nationality of discoveries in the natural science is very conditional. It is unlikely that anyone would come up with an idea to patent Heisenberg's principles or Newton's laws of motion. The second question, was Soviet intelligence engaged in industrial espionage? Of course it was. They were spies. It was their job. And I'm sure their colleagues from the British or American intelligence also were not sitting around doing nothing. Such is the world of technology. Everyone steals from everyone. What conclusion can we make then? Is the Tu-144 a copy of Concorde? Of course not. Engineers used the result of foreign colleagues in their studies. The designers had the opportunity to get acquainted with the work on the Concorde, often at the invitation of the Europeans, as they were invited to the Soviet Union too. But its own technology, operating conditions and specific requirements to the aircraft brought so many changes that the similarity of these two aircraft is mostly just external. And so, back to the project. Officially, the program to create a supersonic passenger aircraft was launched in 1963. The Tupolev Design Bureau was appointed a contractor, as the Tupolevs had experience in creating both supersonic aircraft and civilian airliners. The project received the name Tu-144. It was assumed to be a 100-seat airliner, weighing about 286,000 pounds or 130 tons. Flying at speeds of about Mach 2.5 on a range of about 2,700 miles. Prototypes were supposed to be assembled in 1967, 4 years after the program was initiated. Only 4 years. And you say that Elon Musk is trying to do everything in an insanely short time. The overall design was adapted close to the schemes of the Concorde, since such an option already had a sufficient progress of fundamental study and was considered optimal. On the basis of this layout, were considered many options with canards or with a full empennage. There was a lot of controversy over this. On one hand, the presence of additional airframe